So, hello everybody. Today I'm going to show off something that I got in the mail today. I went shopping and I bought books for DSA 4.1 for €353, which is around about £300 or 400 US dollars. And let's take a look at what the mailman... And by the way, when you buy from Ulysses, you don't get any store credit. Even if you buy for €350, you don't get any rebates. They don't even throw in a die set or anything. So I have to say I was a bit disappointed because that is actually quite a lot of money that I spent in one go. But, you know, there you have it. So let's see what the mailman brought. I'm just going to move it over here for a little so that we can take a good look. So the first one is a collection of adventures called Im Schatten des Elfenbeinturms. Basically, I just bought everything they had because I want to complete my collection. I'm not saying that I will... This is set in Almada, Horasreich and Kuslik in 1034. So after the rediscovery of Uturia. Am I going to run these? Probably, maybe, perhaps, yes or no, that kind of depends, but I just want to collect these books because at some point they will be gone and then I will just have the PDFs left and I really hate them. But I also want to read them at some point in time because by reading these adventures you learn a lot about the lore and about what's happening in the world because of the meta plot that they cover. So for example, but also because you always get ideas for your own campaigns and, you know, ideas for scenarios. And for this, you know, reading adventures is very, very important for that. That's a collection. This is Bahamut's Ruf, which is part of the Splitterdämmerung campaign. Now this deals with the splinters of the demon crown that the Heptarchs had. It's the only one that they've got left. In book form, and that's quite a hefty one. I mean, you can see that this is actually quite big compared to this one. So this is probably over 200 pages, and it's set between 1035 and 1038 at any time between these 3 years, or within those 3 years, and you're looking at expert heroes and the complexity is high and high. So both the dungeon master and the players need to be experienced. Then we've got another adventure compilation, which is set in Havana and the Great River Delta. And the complexity is middle for players and experienced for dungeon masters. There is, it's set between 1033 and 1034. So it might actually work quite well with the Havana book that I got the other day. Then we've got Maskenspiele und Kabale, which is also a collection of adventures. It's for beginners. So this is the only one I think in this slot that is for beginners. It's very thin, and it is simple up to experienced. So, and the experience levels of the heroes is beginners to experts. Well, to experienced. You can set this at any point in time in the Horasreich or the Cyclopean Islands. So again, this is more southern. I don't want to show you this yet. Then we've got Spuren der Verheißung, which is also a collection of adventures. Interestingly enough, as you can see, on these ones, you had this little sword that indicated where in Aventuria it was set. This one doesn't, because it is pretty much set everywhere. We've got Southern Rain Mountains, Albernia, which is up here. Waldinseln, which are, I believe, down here. Lovangen, which is way up here. Fasar and Bornland. Bornland is over here. So it's pretty much set all over. And it is for people who have, for heroes that have no experience up to experienced. And it is, as far as I can recall, a dungeon delve storyline. So it's different. It's different stories. It's not one campaign arc, but it's dungeons essentially, and delving in caverns. Then we've got Steinerne Schwingen, which I mean I just love the cover. It's just so evocative and so beautifully drawn. And again, this is interesting. It's again, you do not have the sword, although this is set in only one place, namely in Garit. And it's set in two. You can play this anytime after 1036. And basically gargoyles and all of these beings come alive at night, and that's an interesting one as well. Next up, we've got Feuerbringer, Erben des schwarzen Eises. So this is, I think, a 3-part series, and I've got part 2 because that's the only one that they had, unfortunately. And this is actually very simple because it says complexity middle for the person running it, and low for the players, and it really says you just need the basic rules. Of course, I would be playing this with DSA 5. It's not a problem to actually change it. Upgrading stuff isn't an issue, although there are no upgrade rules. When you do run into antagonists, there are stats for them in DSA 5 in most cases. And it is set in the high north, in the far north, because of course it is called Erben des schwarzen Eises, so those are the heirs of the black ice. Like I said, unfortunately, I only have this one in book form. I've got the other ones as PDFs. Then we've got Friedlos, Irrfahrt im Nebel. Now this is a campaign which is set up here in Torval and the Sea of the Seven Winds, and it is actually one where it says, the master has to invest quite a lot. So for the person who's running it, the complexity would be high, and it can be played between 1036 and 1037. So another adventure book that I've got is Unter Barbaren, Amongst Barbarians, which is set in 4 different regions. Up here, Gjaskaland, Nebelzinn, and I have no idea where these are, Nördliches Regengebirge and Talusmassiv. I believe that these 2 are down here. So basically you have different areas in Aventuria where we have what we call Barbarenstämme, so barbarians, and you have different adventures set in these areas to get to know those people, which is really good. And I'm really looking forward to reading the one that is set here, because I'm going to start my campaign in Al-Anfa, and at the moment I'm reading as a preparation for my Uturia campaign, which is going to start in Al-Anfa. I'm reading the Jungles of Meridiana, and then I'm just gonna read this as well to just get more fluff, to get more flavor, and to learn more, essentially. Then we've got Der Unersättliche, which is another campaign which is set in here at the Schwarztobrische Küste, so Schwarztobrische Coast, Sommer 1029, so that's a very precise time and place when this is set. And this one is also for people with experience, and the complexity is high for the person who's running it. Then we've got Esche und Kork. Now this is something that really, really reminds me of my of Ireland, because in Ireland we've got a game called hurling where you play with a hurley. This is a stick. It's kind of like a little bit of a shovel at the end, and you have a ball that you balance on it, or you bat it, or you roll it and stuff. This is played all over Aventuria. This game. It's called Iman. So that's the Aventurian version of it, and you play it with sticks made of ash, and the ball is made of cork. So Esche und Kork, ash and cork. And this one is set in Honingen, and there are a couple of adventures that deal to some degree with this sport, and it's supposed to be a really, really good collection. Not easy to run, not easy to play, but it's supposed to be quite fun. Then we also have Pilgerpfade, which is a mixture of adventures that deal with encountering the gods. So and some of them are supposed to be really good, and some of them are supposed to be not so good. And you have different places where it's set. You've got Havena as a setting, Beilung, Exensümpfe, Selem, Mengbilla, Pericum, which is down here. And again, we have Havena, so that might be quite nice to combine this with the Havena source book. And I think that they are quite a mixed bag. Some of them seem to be really good, and some of them seem to be maybe not bad, but require a lot of prep work because they are not really adventures. They're more like a list of hooks or a line of hooks there. And the last adventure collection I've got is Wahl der Waffen, so Choice of Arms, which is supposed to be really good. And this one is set in Al-Anfa, Brabak und Umland, Garetien, Tobrien. So here you've got different adventures. Again, you've got again something that I would read for the Al-Anfa part, simply because it would give me some flavor of Al-Anfa again. So this is the collection of adventures. Then I also got two source books, the only ones I've got left, except for, I think, something to do with Die Reisende Kaiserin, which I'm not going to get. Orden und Bündnisse, which describes organizations in Aventurien. It's the third in the series, and it basically describes what kind of organizations there are, secret organizations, and so on and so forth. So, for example, it describes the Northland Bank, which is a bank. Die Terboniten, the Draconites, the ODL, Widderorden, die Borberat-Kirche, so the Church of Borberat. Borberat is, of course, the big antagonist. So basically, there are plenty of organizations. Some of them are out in the open. Some of them are secret organizations, and they're described so that if you, for example, say, okay, well, I would like my hero to be a member, or there is an NPC that I would like to build and they are a member, or the ODL gets mentioned quite a lot. I have to look up what that actually is, because it sometimes just says it's the ODL and kind of go, what is that actually? So you can read this and then find out what they are and how they act and what they do. And last but by no means least, I've got another regional source book, Schild des Reiches, Weiden, Weißtobrien, Greifenfurt, Pericum und das ehemalige Dalmatien. So basically, that is this area, and this is simply fluff. I expect there to be very little crunch, if any. Maybe some stats for important people, but mostly this will be fluff. This is what you read to find out about the world. I'm just gonna open up this one. Oh, before I do this, I have three more things to show. The Aventurische Bote these days is basically just a piece of paper and some fluff in it, and sometimes something more than just fluff. But there have been some which are more like books, so they kind of are like Dungeon magazine, and they contain more stuff. So this one, for example, has a play aid, which describes creatures from the south. and gives you information. So there's the King of Colibris, very important. They've got animal kings in Aventuria. So for each type of animal, there is one king, and they are immortal, but they get reincarnated. And so here we've got the description of the Colibri King. And then we've got a short adventure, Erbe der Nordmarken. So if you want a quick scenario or something, then another one, Kuss der Vergeltung. So these are things that you could just basically put in. Oh, look, spider. These are things that you could just put in if you're looking for something to tide you over or something to connect two parts of an adventure arc together. Here we've got information about pilgrimages in the Bornland, which would be quite interesting for somebody who is going to the Bornland for, let's say, the Theatre Nights campaign. Just, you know, like 2 pages, but this is something that I could, for example, use for my Rondrite, because she is going to go to the Bornland, and she would be, I mean, she's visited the theatre in Arivor and nearly died when the Doom came to Arivor. But she was going to do a pilgrimage to different places where the Theatre Nights were, you know, like had important battles or had built something. So I'm going to use this to give myself some more background. Then we've got the actual aventurische Boote, which is what you basically also get today. It's this grey stuff. So here we continue with the pilgrimage. Then something. Okay, oh, yeah. Well, funny. This is basically some information about what's to come, and we have both of these now. We just looked at both of them. And then information on DSA 5, which was coming out at the time, or which was being foreshadowed here, gives you some information on the rules. Some nice artwork, some information on heroes, and then some more information on Pereines Gaben. So Pereine is the goddess of agriculture. And then something for the eyes of the game master only. Then we've got another one. Tempel der Hysinde und Kartothek of Pylos. So essentially, that is where essentially my I happen to be from, my Rondrite, so I can read this as some background as well. I mean, I have to say I like these much better than just the normal ones, because the normal aventurische Boten, because they really contain good information on a meta level. So if you're gonna set something there, then you can use this game help. Then we've got a scenario, which is an easy scenario, and for the master and for the players, and the players can be very new as well. This is very helpful, especially when you try to put together a group and you're trying to find a way to forge them together, as it were, and you don't want to go all out and get one of the adventures out, because they can be quite difficult to do. So let me just take a look at 2015. This is probably already DSA 5 then. No, it's still DSA 4 stats, yeah. But like I said, it's not difficult really to convert this. Here we've got a Boronite, Boroni. It's going to be interesting to read that as well. Products that you can get. More stuff on DSA 5, Myranor, which is basically Guldenland, which is now, again, there's a problem with the information on that one and who's going to take care of it. So it's going to be brought back from, or has been brought back from Uhrwerk, and nobody really knows what the story is with that one and what's going to happen. Then here we've got a description of a little village. They've called it Klein Fischbach, so basically normal stats for a small village that you may need, you know, who lives there, you know, and it's also now, this is for DSA 5, this has already been converted. Including a charming little sketch of the village. This is always very helpful. And then here you've got stats for a bad dog. And last but by no means least, number 171. The gamma test for DSA 5, so they're still in the test phase at this stage. So how can you apply for this? What do you need? And I'm not sure if this is actually the Gamma Test Adventure, die Horasische Hochstaplerin, it could be. Oh no, this is a character. This is a character example that you can also then later find in the actual players or in the actual rule set. This is a playwright, Saltares Bachram von Jurios, Großmeister der Golgariten. So he's a Borone. Basically, what is he like? Blah. These are still DSA 4 stats. He's an NPC. It tells you about Gwen Petril stones, which is a source of light, or can be used as a source of light. They glow and it explains where they come from. Then we've got another NPC. His name is Vadif. He's a magician, a mage. Then we've got a scenario, Himmelsfeuer. For which apparently we also have a video on YouTube that you can watch to see how it is played, which is quite helpful because the Let's Play videos, if you have the adventure written down and then you see an experienced DM deal with it and you have experienced players who know the rules, you can see how it could be played and what points you need to hit. So I really like those. If you're inexperienced, they are a great help. Yeah, so here we've got the yeah, this is already DSA 5 values because you've got very, very low PA defense values. And then we've got another piece of information about what's coming. So there's a product that seems to be a board game, Historia Aventurica. I featured this one on my channel. It's a very good book. Yeah, and what is this? Wege Sammelband. Yes, that would have been very nice. These are the most important rule sets for 4.1. Mind you, this is a preview of this of these articles at a time when DSA 5 is already available or going to be available, because now you've got already scenarios using DSA 5 rules and they're bringing out the deluxe versions. That's very interesting. And as I said earlier, I'm always surprised to see how many people still play DSA 4.1, and I have a feeling that Ulysses would be making a lot of money if they went print on demand with them. So that was that, and now we are going to take a look at Schild des Reiches. Let's just unwrap it. And I wish they would turn to making more of these aventurische Boote. They're like $3.90. You know, if they said, okay, well, you can have like if they bring out 4 per year, I would be more than happy to pay, because they are really good. I mean, the other ones are nice because they contain a lot of fluff and stuff, but these ones are a lot more helpful. So we were going to look at the number of pages first, and it's 200. And we've got maps again, which I really love. You know that I'm really happy about every single map that I see, because it helps me visualize stuff more easily. Here we've got a city map. This is Pericum. Yes, I like these maps. They are just very beautiful, very beautifully done. That's the Darpat River. So this is Darpatien, or what used to be Darpatien. Here we've got Trallop. Very nice as well. And then we've got Greifenfurt. Looks like a packed city. I don't know very much about it at all. Trallop for the Game Master, so it looks different. And Greifenfurt down here. Pereinefurten. So yeah, the main cities or towns. And then of course the actual regional map. So let's just put this, and I like this is so like school. Yeah, and the quality of this map is amazing, because it is really, as you can see, it's shiny. You could probably use a dry or wet erase marker to work with this. And I don't know if the camera can catch it. This is a really lovely map, so it shows you where everything is. So this is actually Tobi Mora, yes, Tobermory. Transylien, so this is die Schattenlands. These are the Shadowlands. This is where now the evil resides. And up here we've got the Bornland, so parts of it. This is Tobrien, and this is really the bad place. This is where the werewolves are. I think somewhere over here we have the somewhere here are the Drachensteine. They must be. Baron Kai, Ballyho, Weidenhack. Romulus is down here. Yeah. And of course then you've got the other side, and Beilung down here, Valusa. Okay, so the Drachensteine are here. This is where dragons live. This is where Apep, the Eternal One, lives. He's one of the Kaiser Drachen, so he's a very important dragon. And that's where I am, and maybe tomorrow I will actually meet him. So I think I have seen him, but we haven't spoken. So let's take a look at the actual book and its contents. So again, this would be a lot of text. This is really fluff. I don't expect any crunch in here. There is stuff that is for our eyes as keepers only. You can tell easily because it's got the dark eye symbol. So it does basically it shows you the different parts of the country. It gives you important people. There I would expect some crunch because they will probably have stat blocks. Well, not really actually, but they do tell you about them. So they don't have stat blocks. So, but you know, they tell you about them and who they are and what they do. But it is mainly to read and to understand what's happening there. It's a description of the history, fauna, flora, and who lives there and how they live, culture as well, languages. Also, you might get a bestiary. So here we've got, well, there be bears. Very little with regard to graphics. But for example, this is a really lovely drawing of a joust. Very nicely done. And for those of you who have been paying attention, each of these books has a kind of like a banner at the top. And the banner is different for each book. So each regional book has a different banner. So it's very nicely done. It's, of course, hard back, which I really like. And again, you've got information. For example, here we've got landscapes of Greifenfurt. So basically, who lives there? What do people work as? So, for example, in der Breite now we've got agriculture. We've got weavers, people who make beet juice, and dyers, people who dye stuff red and blue. It tells you what kind of plants are cultivated there. Are there any particular types of animals that are very, very common there? What kind of foodstuffs can you get there? This is sugar beet. Next up here we've got beekeepers, again, farmers, herdsmen, people who make brooms, and people who dye for mussels. So that's just, I mean, you don't really need this. But if you play DSA with people who really want to dive into the world and want to understand what it's like, you know, if you've got a place where people work and they are dyers and they make red and blue clothes or cloth, chances are you will see plenty of people wearing these colors because they're everywhere. And this is something that you can use and just, you know, like say, oh, you notice that lots of people have blue and red cloth. And you might find this very easily in a market, whereas if you want to do something that is green, it might get something that's green might be more difficult. Or for example here, this is an area where you have a lot of berries and mushrooms and chestnuts. So essentially, when your heroes are traveling and they're foraging for food, this is what they would be finding. So I really love this because I'm going to do a video about realism in my imaginary worlds, and this adds to the realism and this makes it seem like there is a world there. And that is very, very important for me, especially as a game master, because I can then fall back. I mean, when I read this, I won't remember every single piece of information. I won't remember exactly where was the place where they have the red and blue dye makers. But when I go to a place that is somewhere there, I will look it up and I will check, okay, what is there? Who is in charge? What are the cultivated crops there? And then I can use this. And I may not even mention it, but if somebody says, okay, so when I look around and I look at the fields, what do people grow? I'll be able to tell them. And it adds to the realism. And it's going to be different for different areas. So it's not always like, oh yeah, you see oat. Oh, and you see oat. And they grow oat. No, it will be something different every single time because the places are different, because they have different climate zones and so on and so forth. The soil is different, the amount of rain that they're getting, the amount of sun that they're getting. And that is really what adds to the realism and what makes it possible for me to run games convincingly, because I need to be able to believe in the world. And if I can believe that this is a place that exists somewhere, I'm able to make other people believe it as well. So that's all from me. As you can see, I've got enough to read to last me a long time. But before I touch these, like I said, I'm going to read anything to do with Al-Anfa to prepare for my Uturia campaign. And I will probably post some updates on that one as well. I wish you all a pleasant evening. Bye-bye.